So today we're gonna be customizing the Air Forces that I cleaned in my last video. If you haven't seen that, I'm gonna leave a link up in the top right corner somewhere that you can go and watch that to see how to restore or clean your Air Force Ones if they've gotten dirty. So we're starting off with the prep work, and the prep work is the most important part of any custom, believe me, man. The better you prepare for the custom, the less cleanup that you're gonna have to do. You're gonna always have to do some type of cleanup, but you wanna minimize the amount of cleanup because it is a headache, man. If you don't tape off properly and take your time. See, I used to rush with the taping process because I was ready to get to the painting part. But I learned over time that I would still have to go back because the paint would lift as I removed the tape because I didn't tape it correctly. So take your time with the taping process. It will definitely pay off in the long run. Just trust me on that one. Okay, now I'm gonna take my Xacto knife and remove any excess tape that kind of spills over onto the leather. One tip that I can give you here is it'll be better if you cut further down onto the rubber by accident than to leave any excess tape on the leather, because if the paint gets onto the rubber part, it's easier to remove. You can just take your Xacto knife and kind of scrape it off and then maybe use a cotton swab and remove the excess paint. But if you leave tape on the leather and you peel it and it lifts, then you have a much bigger problem. So, okay, now we're removing the laces, which I would have done before, but I wanted the shoe to dry in a certain shape. So now that it's dry, we're removing the laces so that we can start stripping the factory finish off of the shoe. I'm going to be using professional strength acetone, but like I've said before, nail polish remover from your local beauty supply store will work just as fine. It just may take a couple more passes in order to remove the finish. So you just want to make sure that you make a decent amount of passes over the shoe, and you'll be able to tell that you've removed the factory finish because it'll start to have like a dull look. It won't look as shiny as it did before. But you don't want to scrub too much because you don't want to dig too far into the paint. You just want to give the paint that you're going to be applying a surface that it can adhere to. Okay, I'm gonna say this now because I don't want any customizers coming at my head. When you apply your first coat, it should never be that thick. It should be kind of how it looks on the toe here that I'm doing. It should be very light. You wanna drop a very light coat, the first coat, because if you do what I did there, you give a big chance of cracking. So what I ended up having to do was, after I finished this coat, I kind of went over it with acetone and removed some of it so that it was much lighter, because a coat that thick at the beginning, you have a very high risk of cracking over time. See, even here, if you look here, how light that coat is, that still may be a little too dark, but that's much better than how it looked when I first started. You should never start that dark. Okay, FYI, the shoe only looks this full that fast because I kind of sped it up. I didn't want to overload you guys the first time around, but I will be doing much more in-depth videos showing the coats and things like that if you would like to see that. I just didn't want to, make the video too long. Okay, here I'm applying the heat gun. One thing about the heat gun, you want to keep it at least about 6 inches away and keep it consistently moving. One rule of thumb is, if it's too hot for you, it's too hot for the shoe. Okay, now we're going to be mixing some duller into our base coat of paint. You'll see here that I kind of hesitated because I kind of eyeball. I've been doing it for a while, so I can pretty much eyeball how much duller to paint ratio is good. But it should be about 1/8, I believe, which is about 15%. I'll be covering a video on, I'll do a whole nother video on that, so just be on the lookout for that. So the way that I apply duller is I do about 3 to 4 coats of base coat, because I want to, duller actually thins out the paint, and if you start out with dulled paint, it will crack. So you want to do about 4, just to be safe, base coats of Angelus paint or whatever paint you're going to be using, because that will give a good flexibility, and then you come on the top of that with your dulled out base coat. Okay, now I'm taking a cotton pad and removing some of the excess blue paint off of the white. I do this because when I'm gonna apply red to this check, and if I apply the red on top of the blue, I'll have to apply so many more coats to cover that up, especially even here with the pink, it'll be even worse. Now, right here is a prime example that even the best of us make mistakes. So make sure you clear your workspace when you're gonna start painting, because I had to go back and paint over that with the blue paint. Okay, now we're gonna be pouring our red paint in order to start painting the check. And see, this is an area that really won't be flexing too much. So I can kind of go in with a heavier coat than I would in the places that there will be creasing and there will be a possibility of cracking. Not too heavy, but just, you know, kind of to speed up that process. It wasn't this fast. I didn't paint it this fast. Again, I told you guys I sped it up so that we can kind of get through this video without boring you guys. Okay, I don't know if you guys noticed in the earlier parts of the video where when I painted the tongue, I didn't touch the tab. And that was because I needed to add an additive called GAC 900, GAC 900. And what that does is allows the paint to blend with that fabric and give it a more natural appearance and feel. Because if you just painted it with paint, it would harden and be shiny and it would not look natural at all. I'll be covering a video on that additive as well. You know, just showing how to mix it and how to apply it and things like that in a later video. But the way that this additive works is it has to be heat set in order for it to sit on top of the fabric and give it a soft feel. So you have to, that rule of thumb that I gave you earlier, if it's too hot for you, it's too hot for the shoe, definitely applies here, because you do not want to burn your fabric or the paint. Okay, last but definitely not least is the laces. Without the laces, shoes look like crap. So you always have to make sure that the laces are on point. Right here, I'm mixing the paint with the GAC 900, and again, I'll be doing a video on dyeing laces as well. But if you look right here, my bag had a hole in it, man. I didn't even know. It just started to come out. I'm glad that you couldn't hear what I was saying, because there was a whole lot of cursing going on. But here's the finished product. I hate that I forgot to do an untaping for you guys and all of that. I just forgot. I was so excited to show it to you, but this is it. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and definitely comment down below and let me know what I forgot to talk about and what you guys want to hear more of. You know, help me help you guys. And like I always say, every day is a great day. And if you don't think so, you just try missing one. Mood out.